Welcome to our episode of Reach Mine, Thoughts for Your Life's Journey podcast. In today's session, we will be exploring the significance of fierce compassion. So as we know, compassion, not just as a means of self-soothing and self-kindness, but fierce compassion is also a powerful catalyst for taking practical actions and standing up for ourselves. Fierce compassion emphasizes the importance of support, allyship, and community in overcoming challenges with practical application. Today, I am joined by Zoe Shobbroook-Fisher, who I met in 2016 when I attended her excellent 8 weeks MBSR course. She helped me to start my journey into a mindful practice. Zoe's wish is to share mindfulness and compassion approaches for greater well-being and joy in a way that is accessible, personal, and with integrity. Welcome, Zoe, to our podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you, Nita.
Let's get going. I'm curious about what does fierce self-compassion mean and how does it differ, as I alluded to it in our beginning, from self-compassion?
So it differs. It is an expression of self-compassion. And so we might think of compassion both for others and for ourselves as having these two different kind of qualities. Sometimes, and this is the more familiar, I think, when we think about compassion, our compassion for others, maybe for ourselves, has this kind of soothing, comforting, kind of tender quality, we might say. Yeah. And even as I speak about it, there's a tone, isn't there? It's kind of warm and gentle. And fierce compassion for others and for ourselves, self-compassion, is more strong. It has more the qualities of like courage, of action. So it's a kind of caring force. It's more doing oriented. So sometimes we need compassion. We need a loving support that gives us the energy to do something different, to speak out, to behave differently, to make different choices. And it all comes from a place of love, basically. So it's like, it's caring love. It's love in response to difficulty, to suffering. One is more tender and the other is more active.
Great having the definition of fierce self-compassion. What might be some of the symptoms where a person might begin to recognize that they need to practice self-compassion for themselves?
So are you saying self-compassion in general or fierce self-compassion?
Fierce self-compassion.
Yeah. Because I mean, basically a prompt for compassion, whether it's fierce or tender, is that there's some kind of difficulty. We're suffering in some way. There's some kind of stress. Compassion is the wish to alleviate suffering. Okay, is a general kind of definition. So when we might need a more fierce, kind of active, caring response is when, well, one classic example would be burnout. So the feeling that we've reached our limits and we need to do something active in order to redress the balance because things are out of balance. We might be feeling overburdened, for example. So we've kind of said yes to too many people. We're allowing other people's needs to kind of drown out our own needs. And this happens to all of us at different times in our lives, right? Especially if we find ourselves in a parenting role or in a caring role, or maybe that's part of our role in our work, right? That we have a lot of other people that we need to attend to. So we might find ourselves feeling exhausted, overstretched, and also at times when we feel unsafe, right? So one of the expressions of this caring force is protective. It's like putting up a hand and saying, no, stop. And so when we feel unsafe, when we, yeah, which could arise in lots of different ways. Sometimes it's physical, but often it's emotional, right? Or relationally, we might feel that somebody's not giving us enough time to say what we need to say. So it might take a bit of fierce self-compassion to say, hold on a minute, just let me finish what I need to say, right? And I'm kind of putting my hand up to say stop. The other element, just because there's three different sort of qualities of fierce self-compassion that we focus on. The other time is when we feel like we need to change something. So maybe we've got a habit that we want to break. We want to do more of something or less of something, and we need to motivate ourselves.
What might that be? Give me an example so that people can sort of think about it for themselves.
Maybe making changes in our routine, to our diet, exercise, making different choices about where we prioritize our time. And so we might really, instead of pointing the finger at ourselves and criticizing ourselves for not having managed it last year, we might actually be better encouraged by hearing a motivating inner voice. We talk about an inner good friend that says, you can do this, and I want to help you find ways to make these changes that we can point to and that we can use it for, which is protective, providing, so providing for our own needs, and motivating.
And I realize for myself, one of the things I've learned to do is to be more boundaried in what's acceptable to me, what isn't, so that I can be in more control of what it is that I want. And that's something I've become very, very conscious of in my interaction with people. For example, when a client says, oh, could you meet at 9 o'clock in the morning? I used to say, yeah, whereas now I go, no, I can meet you at 10, not at 9.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm curious about is the work that Kristin Neff, who brought in self-compassion, and now she's talking about fear self-compassion. Has that been a natural progression from her work, and I can hear it's different because it's more practical. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, it really is a natural progression. So, yeah, Kristin Neff, who's written a fantastic book, particularly for women around fierce self-compassion. Speaking as a woman, Kristin Neff really wanted to express and make space for all the ways in which she recognized that she had this other side to her that was a bit more like roaring mama bear, and a sense in which the world really calls on us at this time, kind of socially, politically, to speak out and make changes. So, yeah, it's a natural progression. So we start, and I would encourage anyone who wants to explore this to kind of begin with cultivating the tenderness that we so often offer to others, the gentle, understanding, empathic, comforting. We offer that to others. We can offer that to ourselves. And that's a place to start, to kind of calm down our nervous system, give ourselves some space to listen in to our hearts.
How do we
When,
do that, Zoe? Because that's
well,
for some people, that might be really alien to them.
yeah, for sure. None of us were brought up to do this stuff,
No, no, I know,
right?
no.
So yeah, so it is really unfamiliar, and yeah, it can also feel uncomfortable, which is why it's really helpful to learn with others and to learn with a skilled teacher that can support you. As I'm speaking to you, I'm putting a hand on my heart. And so that's one of the ways in which I kind of make that U-turn from focusing out on what others need to turning towards myself and kind of saying, what do I need? Right. So just that question, what do I need, is already a shift towards self-compassion. That's a self-compassionate question to ask. How often do we ask ourselves that?
Not often.
Yeah. And what can the response to what do I need sometimes is really tender. I just need to rest. I just need to comfort myself. I need to soothe myself with touch, with words, doing self-compassionate things in my life that nourish me. And other times, just like you said, you realized when I ask myself, what do I need? I need to not be having an appointment at 9 o'clock in the morning. So, how am I going to make that happen? I'm actually going to tap into another energy that helps me actually hold a boundary. So the two go together. And originally, Kristin talked about these as kind of yin and yang compassion because they need to be in balance. And one of the problems, and to gender it a little bit, often women will be very good at the kind of soothing, comforting, gentle compassion and feel less encouraged or entitled to raise their voices. And I'm making a fist as I say that, right? We're less familiar with embodying that strong compassion. So
Now,
it's a really important balance.
and I'm wondering whether somebody listening to our podcast might say, "Oh, isn't that being a bit selfish?" I'm sure you've come across
Yeah.
those kinds of comments.
Well, it's one of the myths about self-compassion that I hear the most. And it can be, yeah, part of learning to be self-compassionate is maybe encountering those blocks in yourself. What we know is that self-compassionate people are actually more empowered to take care of others because it resources us. It's like I find it helpful to remember you can't give with an empty hand. So I need to fill up my own cup in order to be able to be there for others. And I've worked with groups of carers who found this incredibly helpful. Yeah, to recognize it's not that other people's needs don't matter, but actually I can't tend to other people's needs in the way that I wish to unless I also include my own. So it's kind of the opposite of selfish, right? It's actually caring for others. I care for myself.
I think that is so true because what that resonates for me is that couple of things, which is we can't give what we don't have. And the second thing that occurs to me that it's hard to be self-compassionate to others if we can't be self-compassionate to ourselves.
And being self compassionate to ourselves, we're modeling a way of being that is so empowering and resourcing for others because we can't always, there aren't always other people there, right? Who is always there? Ourselves, 24/7, right? So it doesn't mean that we don't need other people. I think that's another really important kind of myth that it's all about being kind of fiercely independent. It's not. It's recognizing we do need support from others, right? And actually it empowers us to say, I need you to be on board with this, right? And that's also often is that for me, I kind of feel like I need to tap into some of that fierce energy, the strong self-compassion that says, I can't do this all on my own, right? I need some backup. And it's so empowering and resourcing. And I think particularly if we're in contact with young people to share this resource with them early on, to value themselves.
Actually, and that it's okay from what you're saying to be vulnerable and to ask. Because people can turn it down as well, can't they? They can say, I
Yeah.
can't give you that right now. And it doesn't mean you don't ask it again. And I have a sense around that people maybe don't want to make themselves vulnerable in that respect. But what you're saying very clearly is being self-compassionate to ourselves is really empowering for ourselves, for us.
Yes.
And that gives us some agency in terms of how we are in the world, really.
It empowers us to be vulnerable. paradoxically, because I can acknowledge my needs and my need for support from a place not of judging it as weakness, but recognizing that it's strength.
What kind of benefits have you observed in others when they practice fierce self-compassion?
I've noticed that people feel much more able to speak out, to express the boundaries that they need. One of the things that I share with people is it's really kind of simple practice of embodying fierce compassion with like making a fist, putting a fist on your chest, giving yourself the thumbs up and a pat on the back to motivate yourself, encourage yourself. And the classic kind of stop sign or like drawing a line. I had somebody come to a workshop once and she got in touch with me the next day and said, I put it into practice straight away. I needed to say to some people who were caring for my elderly parent, that's it, that's enough. She found just that gesture of kind of like drawing a line was really helpful. It emboldened her to say, that's enough. It's not okay. So, yeah, more courage to speak out and also more a sense of really giving ourselves permission, I think, sort of more permission to attend to our own needs. So that sense of, oh, this is selfish or this is self-indulgent kind of gets out of the way. And you just kind of, yeah, you can sort of really give yourself like, yeah, my needs matter. Yeah. So more empowered, more open, more free, more available to others, actually. Yeah.
And I also just sort of hearing you and watching you, I can see it as a very physical thing as well,
Mm,
because what you're saying is fist, or these are very physical acts of a
yeah.
relationship with ourselves, where we're doing something in our own room, where we're preparing ourselves in terms of what do we need to do with an encounter that we've been maybe avoiding.
Yeah. So it's really about tapping into an energy. And so it's kind of feeling into when we're sitting in our seat, feeling like the steady ground beneath us and kind of maybe sitting a little bit taller. You can feel that kind of shift, right? When you just feel the lengthening of the spine. And one of the one of the metaphors actually, which comes from a teacher called Joan Halifax, is we practice to have a strong back and a soft front. Yeah, so the two kind of going together. So you feel into like your strong back, and then I make a fist of one hand, and I like to have it over my solar plexus because I feel like that's my kind of central nervous place, right? That's where I feel a lot of what's happening. And then it's kind of leaning into the inhalation a little bit more than the exhalation. So I'm just breathing naturally, but just feeling that the in breath kind of is empowering,
Mm.
right? It's a kind of up energy. And maybe the out breath is a little bit more soft and releasing. Maybe that's what happens after you've had the encounter. Then you kind of go, and you sort of breathe out. But before the encounter, it's like, yeah, just feeling into my height, my strong back, maybe making a fist or the stop sign. And there's so much research evidencing the fact that our body posture really affects how we feel. It affects about how I feel about myself. Stretching your arms out either side of your body as well, just like taking up your space, because your personal space is as far as your arms can reach either side of you, behind you, above you. It's like, this is my space, right? And this is another way in which we might need to protect ourselves sometimes. Say, up, back off. This is my space. You're coming too close, right? Yeah. So sensing into that can be, yeah, really empowering.
What other resources do you think you could offer for someone who wants to start practicing fierce self-compassion for themselves?
So, I mean, an important thing to say is that fierce self-compassion makes more sense, is more available to us once we've already established some sense of maybe a more tender self-compassion to start with. And it uses really the same kind of tools. So what we explore is how we talk to ourselves. It's about shifting the self-talk. Yeah. And one of the ways that we can begin to explore talking to ourselves in a different way is actually through writing to ourselves. So, for example, around motivating yourself towards a change, you could imagine writing to yourself as if you were one of your good friends encouraging you. Or you could imagine, if that feels difficult, you could imagine that you're writing to somebody that you really care about, that you really love, whose happiness is really important to you. Yeah. And you could write a letter to yourself as if you're writing to that being. And you're saying, I really want to help you. I really want to help you make this change. So how about, I know it's hard, and how about we try this? Because I love you, I want to help you. So you can start to hear a different inner voice.
So any final tips that you might want to leave people with, Zoe?
Well, I noticed that I haven't really included the whole realm of meditation. And of course, this is what I'm so often sharing with people and what really nourishes me and you on a daily basis. So yeah, just a reminder that there are all these guided meditations that people can access and are best accessed through doing a course, with the support of others and with a skilled teacher. And the support of others is so important when it comes to compassion, because it's all about healing through connection. Yeah. Reminding ourselves how we're all in this together, and that this being human is hard sometimes, as well as all the wonderful things that it is.
Thank you very much, Zoe. I'm going to take away the stretching my arms every morning just for a second.
Yeah.
Because I think that is so spacious for me.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you, Nita. It's been a pleasure.
If you enjoy listening, tell a friend.